What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, I'm going to give my review of Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 1, titled Dragonstone. Alright, so Game of Thrones Season 7 is finally here. The wait is over. Well, we still gotta wait week to week to get our next Game of Thrones fix. But it is what it is. Everything is not bingeable. Everything is not a streaming service, as much as I wish it was sometimes, right? Especially times like this. But we'll make do, and we'll just think about it and talk about it obsessively until next Sunday gets here. At least that's what you're gonna do if you're anything like me, which I found few people are like me, but I know you guys are out there. Alright, so let's get into this review. More of a discussion than a review nowadays is how I handle things, but let's get into it. So Dragonstone, Episode 1. I loved it. I thought it was great. There wasn't tons of action, wasn't tons of excitement, but there's a lot of good character moments. Some really, really good setup for where we're going this season, and throughout the duration of the series. And just some great, like I said, character pieces and story moments. Not necessarily the story moving along quickly, but I think the pace is gonna pick up after this first episode. I feel like Dragonstone was just a setting. Basically, okay, this is where we are in Season 7. Sorry about that. This is where we are in Season 7, and this is where we're going in Season 7, so buckle in. That's really what I feel like the purpose of this episode was. Alright, so let's kind of break it down character by character. Let's start with Arya. She opened the episode and she's listed first on the synopsis, so let's start with her. Her synopsis says Arya makes her way south. Now this is true, but that's really her second half. Before that, the episode starts with Arya, and the way it starts, I was really thinking it was a flashback of some sort. Because, and I actually checked the box just to make sure they didn't move it to 10 o'clock, and this wasn't, Winds of Winter again, because I was pretty sure Winds of Winter started with the Frey, speech also. So, it just messed with my head for a minute, and I didn't put two and two together, honestly, until I see everyone start drinking, and then I'm like, oh, it's Arya, she's poisoning them all. So that whole scene is going by, and I'm not putting two and two together. Arya's the best, right? Let's put aside the fact that how does she get his voice and his mannerisms and his size all right? We'll just chalk that up to magic. Even though Arya does seem to be a bit taller now, and I'm sure she's been using her talents quite a bit on the road. So I'm willing to let it fly out of my head. Hopefully you are. All right. So we get that whole awesome scene where, to tell the phrase that winter came, or whatever she says. It was just an awesome scene. So powerful from the actress Maisie Williams. She really does a great job at seeming wise beyond her years, seeming like a very mature person for her age, And just the way it was handled was great. I mean, the way she handled Walder Frey last season was awesome. And now this to just take out the rest of the Freys. The Freys are dead now. She destroyed them all, It goes back to what somebody said. I think it was Ned. I don't know, something like, if you leave even one wolf alive, then, the sheep better be careful. Maybe she said it in this episode and I don't know, whatever. Awesome stuff. And then we get her later on in the episode coming across a group of Lannister soldiers. One of them being Ed Sheeran, who Maisie Williams is a huge fan of, and I think was trying to get him on the show for a while, and finally got him on the show. So that's a nice little backstory there. And I'm tense this whole scene, right? I'm on the edge of my seat thinking something terrible is going to happen to Arya, or they're going to try and do something terrible to Arya. And then as it starts playing out, I'm like, don't drink the wine, don't eat the food, They're giving it all to her first. They just seem too nice. And plus, we all don't trust Lannisters really, from a viewer standpoint. So, and we know everything that's going on. So, it was really hard to not think that something terrible might happen there. And then when she notices their weapons are so far away, I'm like, oh my God, is Arya going to kill all of these people? And you see in the dialogue and in the acting, such great acting, especially by the young cast. It's just amazing how well done it is. And it just goes to show you how any show, if they put the money, the time, and the thought into it, can get these kinds of performances out of their cast. I'm not saying all actors are this good. But what I'm saying is that what we see on TV a lot of the times is the directors and the showrunner and the show itself, the network, whatever, not getting the most out of their actors. We see this time and time again with countless shows all over TV. But this is a show that goes to show you that these aren't seasoned veteran actors, that these aren't even the kid actors in here haven't even done tons of stuff, so you can get the best performances on TV out of, I'm not taking anything away from the actors, but out of people who aren't these big name stars. So take that with what you will, right? Okay, so but nothing happens and it cuts. Now I believe we will see what happens in the next episode, but we only have two choices. Either she slaughters them all, or she lets them go because she realizes that she's not a monster and doesn't want to become as bad as the monster she's killing. But I think Game of Thrones isn't the type of show to make it a clean-cut thing. So I think even though she's conflicted and she doesn't want to become a monster, I believe she's going to slaughter them all because she can't start letting off of her list and her revenge trip now. Because if she starts letting off now, maybe she'll give up by the end. And I think she's about her business and she needs to really stick to her guns, and she knows that. So I don't think Ed Sheeran and his buddies are going to make it out okay at all. But that's just me. All right, let's move on. Now we got Jon organizes the defense in the north. And great stuff here between Jon and Sansa. Well, first, before I get to Jon and Sansa, I love Lyanna Mormont. She's just great. This young actress, and the way she's just able to captivate the audience and grab the control of the scene and the screen is just amazing to me. Once again, it really goes, not to take away from the actors. Of course, the actors get tons of credit, but it really goes to the directing and the show running and the way they just harp on getting the best out of every single performer they have. Loved it. All right, so, once again, she's calling people out. She's telling them. In the last one, she was like, you did not answer the call. You did not answer the call. And now she's basically telling them, look, I'm like 8 years old, 10 years old. If I'm getting out there with a sword, your daughter's getting out there with a sword. Love it. Great stuff. All right, so we get Jon and Sansa. Now, if you really look at their debate, their argument over which houses should get which territory, right? Which property. They both make a valid point. And depending on what kind of leader you are, is who you side with. And I think Jon made the right call, but the wrong call as well. Like, it's the call I probably would have made. It's the noble call. It's the call trying to get everyone under one umbrella and not trying to isolate or alienate any of the groups by taking away what's theirs. So it really is a noble way. But remember, the noble way doesn't always win here in Game of Thrones. Actually, it rarely does. Robb was a noble sort of guy. Ned was a noble sort of guy. And we saw what happened to them, right? Not to mention countless others. So I don't know if it's really the right choice. It may cause some dissonance in the north. But, it's the choice I would have made. But now I understand Sansa's choice, which I think is more of the choice that Littlefinger would have made. And I'm not saying it's a bad choice or it's an evil choice or it's the bad guy way. But I think that's kind of where she got that train of thought, is from Littlefinger, that these people helped you and now you pay them. Now you give them their just due. And I really think that that's also a good way to make new friends or to keep your alliances happy. But it also, like I said, can create a lot more tension. And, you just gave them my family stuff that's been in my family for thousands of years or whatever, yeah, it's got to be rough. Think of the Blackfish last season, how he didn't want to give up his family's castle over at River Run, right? It's a similar situation there, and Jon knows that it's a mistake to do it. So it's hard to say which way is the right way as far as the story in the world of Westeros goes. But I can say that I probably would have sided with Jon in that case. But Sansa was wrong in speaking up in front of everyone. She should have spoke to him privately about it. She was totally wrong for that. She knows she was wrong for that. And I don't know if she was doing it on purpose to get a rise out of Jon, to create some tension, or if she just felt because she is also a Stark, she had the right to speak. And I think that's more likely the scenario, is that she felt she had the right to speak. And if you look at Littlefinger in the background, he's plotting and scheming as always. And I think what he's up to is he's going to create friction between Sansa and Jon, telling her that she's the rightful heir and the rightful leader, and that Jon isn't even really Ned's kid. And that's going to create the whole question in Jon's head of whether or not Littlefinger is lying or telling the truth. And I think that's going to spark it. I did a whole video about that. You can check it out on the channel. All right, let's move on to Cersei. Great stuff with her and Jaime. You really start to see how, even though Cersei is like a cornered animal, well, I shouldn't say even though, because cornered animals are the most dangerous, right? So she's cornered. She's showing us, there's enemies at the north, the west, the south, the east, whatever. There's enemies all around me. I have no friends. And but she still remains calm, cool, and collected. At least it appears. And she seems to have a plan, even though we're, as an audience, not privy to that plan. I'm sure it will start to become more evident to us as it plays out. But part of her plan is to recruit Euron. Now, if that's part of her plan, why does she turn him away? And I think she turns him away so that he can prove her the loyalty and make himself useful. But I do not believe she has plans of marrying him. I think she wants to use him for his army and then take him out. But Euron probably has similar plans to where he wants to use her to get the throne and then kill her and take a younger, more beautiful wife or whatever, right? I really think that's where we're going here. It's a power play, and those never work out well. But that's what bad guys do, is they play on power. So this united front of the Greyjoys and the Lannisters is really that, just a front for both of them to screw the other one over, essentially. So we had some really great stuff there in the throne room with Euron and Jaime and Cersei and the mountain. It's really great stuff. I'm curious to see what he's going to bring her. I'll talk about that more in the predictions, but I'm thinking it's going to be a person or something that's useful against dragons. One or the other. I haven't really made up my mind yet, but I'm sure I will by the time the predictions get recorded. So that's really it as far as what we get with Cersei. It's really her just trying to figure out how they're going to get the numbers. And Jaime brings up a valid point too, that winter's coming. We don't got resources. People need to worry about food and shelter and keeping their family safe, not going to war. But I also understand Cersei on this end, where it's like, yeah, but the war is coming to us, so we need to be ready for it. And it's a nice parallel to Jon and Sansa and their argument, to Jaime and Cersei and their argument, to where both parties are right in what they're saying, but it's just which is the better choice to make for now, for what's happening right now. Like Jon is thinking about the future, Sansa is thinking about now, and whereas Jaime is thinking about the future in a sense, where Cersei is thinking about right now. So it's a nice parallel. All right, let me try and wrap this up. It's getting longer than I want it to be. But that's really it with Cersei and Jaime and them. We just get, and the Greyjoys, we just kind of get that whole dynamic. And it's nice to see Cersei's war floor, right? And then you see Dany's war table at the end. That's awesome. Well, I'll get to Dany in a minute. Now we got Sam, and I really liked what they did with his time in the Citadel. It reminded me of Requiem for a Dream, if you've ever seen that movie. The way it's edited, those fast cuts, it's like they took the editing right out of the Requiem for a Dream playbook. If you haven't seen that, check it out. Jared Leto, Marlon Wayans, Jennifer Connelly. It's in the 90s. It's like a drug movie. Watch it. It was good. So we see how hard Sam is working to find out this information to help mankind. I mean, he's not really doing it for any reason other than to obtain knowledge so that he can pass it on to Jon, so Jon could then win the Great War. So you see that we always knew Sam was a good guy, but we see how determined he is, where he's going through all of this, cleaning out the bedpans and then washing the dishes and eating the nasty food that looks like what's in the bedpan. And it's nice to hear and see a lot of people talking to online in my personal life about how there was points where they couldn't tell the difference between, like the bedpan and the food. Because I was having that problem watching it, and I was like, I wonder if other people or if it's just me. But that was all good stuff. Sam is going to become greatly useful. We all know it. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the predictions. But good stuff there. And then finally we get Dany. Now the Dany scene was great. It was short. It wasn't a lot. There was almost nothing said. It was almost completely silent, which is what made it greatly effective. Just to see Dany at her homeland that she's been trying to get to all this time. She was born in that castle. Her parents, lived in that castle. Her family lived in that castle. They built that castle. You know what I mean? That castle is very important to Targaryens and who they are and their lineage. So for her to be back home, not only in Westeros, from where she feels, this is her homeland here, but to her actual home on that homeland. You know what I mean? So she's not only in Westeros, she's in her backyard of her childhood home. And it's just such a powerful, magical moment. I loved it. And then I love the way that Melisandre holds back Grey Worm, that no, Dany's got to experience it for herself. Let her go. And then Tyrion follows because he's in awe also. Not only in awe of Dany, but in awe of the Targaryens and the dragons and probably the artwork and the artistry of that room, that war room. And I think it all lends back to he's a secret Targaryen. And it's going to make all of this all that more powerful when we find out that Tyrion is a Targaryen. It's going to make it all the more powerful, the stuff with the dragons, the stuff here at Dragonstone. And it's just going to be such a great series of moments that Tyrion is headed for. I truly believe that. So that's it for this one. I know my phone's ringing. Sorry, I got to go get that. Thank you. Definitely drop your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 1, Dragonstone, or what your predictions are for the rest of the season, or if you want to talk about anything Game of Thrones, hit me up down there. Definitely be on the lookout for the channel for more Game of Thrones stuff. There's already some other stuff there, but we'll be doing stuff all season long, all the way at least to the end of the series, and probably a little bit beyond that. So, thank you so much for watching. Always appreciate it. Sorry about the end was so choppy on this one. The phone ringing threw me off. So thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time.